I shouldn't have looked twice, but I did. The wrench slipped in my hand as I crouched by her kitchen sink, pretending the pipes needed all my attention. Truth was, I could feel her there, leaning against the counter, arms folded, waiting, watching. She wasn't supposed to make me this nervous. A neighbor, nothing more. Mid-40s maybe, hair tied back carelessly, glasses perched low as if she'd been reading when the leak started. She called me because I'd mentioned once that I fixed things on the side. That was all. Nothing that should have left my pulse racing. But then her voice broke the silence. You didn't have to come so fast. It's just a drip. I tightened the wrench too hard. Couldn't leave you waiting. The words hung heavier than I meant them to. I caught the faintest twitch at her mouth, half amusement, half something else, and looked back at the pipe, as if steel and rust mattered more than the way she tilted her head at me. The kitchen was too quiet, the kind of quiet where you hear your own breathing, or the way her slippers dragged slightly when she shifted her weight. I'd been in plenty of rooms with people older than me, bosses, professors, relatives. None of them made the silence feel this loaded. You always this helpful? She asked. Not really. I kept my eyes down. Guess I make exceptions. Her laugh was soft, but it cut through me. Not mocking, just knowing. Like she'd caught something I didn't mean to give away. I adjusted the pipe again, hands damp, realizing I hadn't blinked in too long. I wanted to say something safe, but instead I asked, Do you live here alone? She paused, just enough to make me regret the question. Then, yes, most of the time. That most lingered, mysterious, like an unfinished story. I could have left it there, but curiosity edged closer to wanting. When I finally turned, she was nearer than before, leaning just enough that the space between us felt suddenly fragile. Her eyes didn't match the casual tone in her voice. You know, she said, you shouldn't look at me like that. I froze. My throat tightened. I wasn't. You were. She smiled, but it wasn't cruel. It was worse, gentle, certain, as if she knew what I'd been trying not to admit. My hand slipped, brushing hers when she reached to steady the flashlight. Warm skin, brief contact. My heart tripped over itself. She didn't move her hand right away, and neither did I. The silence this time wasn't empty. It was thick, pulling at something we both tried to ignore. I shouldn't be doing this, she murmured. I swallowed hard, voice lower than I intended. Neither should I. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and the room changed. Not in a loud way, just a shift, like the air tilted, waiting to see what we'd dare next. She looked at me for too long, her hand still steadying mine on the flashlight. For the first time, I didn't look away. I could have pulled back, should have, but her hand lingered on mine a moment too long, and by the time I shifted, the air between us was already different. This isn't, she started, then stopped herself. She set the flashlight down, pretending to busy her hands. But the pause in her voice told me she'd thought about finishing that sentence. I straightened, wiping my palms on my jeans. You don't have to explain. Her eyes flicked up at me, sharp and almost defensive. I wasn't going to. That stung more than it should have. I turned back to the pipe, even though it was already fixed. My chest tightened. Dangerous. That was the only word I had for this. Not because she wasn't beautiful, she was, but because she was older, steadier, someone who should have known better. Maybe she did. Maybe that was what made it worse. She broke the silence again, softer this time. It's been quiet in here since the divorce. Too quiet. The confession landed heavy, like she'd surprised herself by saying it aloud. My grip on the wrench froze. Divorce. That explained the way her gaze sometimes wandered like she was somewhere else. The half-drunk glass of wine by the sink at noon, the faint tiredness around her smile. I wanted to ask how long ago, why it ended, if she still thought about him. But instead I just said, I get it. She raised an eyebrow. Do you? I shrugged, suddenly aware of how young my answer must have sounded. What did I know about losing someone you'd built years with? What did I know about loneliness that carved out a whole house? Still, I found myself watching the little things. How her fingers tapped against the counter when she was restless. How she avoided my eyes when she mentioned him. Details I shouldn't have noticed, but did. Most people don't ask how I'm doing, she said after a beat. They just assume. I wasn't going to assume, I said quickly. Her lips parted, like she wanted to say something, then she pressed them shut. That silence said more than words could. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. My heart tried to match its pace. I leaned back, finally admitting to myself that the job was done. I should leave, but leaving felt like tearing out mid-sentence. I should go, I muttered, though my feet didn't move. She tilted her head, studying me the way she had before. You don't have to. Not yet. The words were casual, but her hand reached out, lightly brushing my arm, not asking, not holding, just touching. I froze. Everything in me wanted to lean into it, to ask what she meant, why me, why now. Instead, I just looked at her, hoping my silence said enough. Her words, stay a little longer, kept repeating in my head, louder than the ticking clock, louder than my own conscience. I nodded before I could talk myself out of it. She let her hand slide away slowly, as if testing how far she could go before I flinched. I didn't flinch. That was the problem. She poured another glass of wine, offered me one without asking if I wanted it. Don't worry, I won't tell your landlord, she joked, a faint smirk softening the heaviness between us. I laughed too quickly, too forced. Guess it's a crime now, fixing sinks? But I didn't touch the glass she set in front of me. Instead, I watched the way her fingers curled around hers. Nails short, chipped polish, details I wasn't supposed to notice. We sat across the small table, the silence heavier than the wine in our glasses. I kept thinking of her divorce, of the loneliness in her voice. It wasn't pity I felt. It was something sharper, something I didn't know how to name without sounding reckless. Then her phone buzzed against the counter. She glanced at the screen, hesitated, and let it ring. Don't you need to get that? I asked. Her lips tightened. It's him. I didn't ask who. I didn't have to. The ringing filled the room until it cut off, leaving a silence that pressed harder than before. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was daring me to see the truth behind her calm face. You should probably think I'm pathetic, she said, voice low. Sitting here, not even picking up. I shook my head. I don't. You're too young to understand. I leaned forward before I could stop myself. Try me. Her eyes flicked down, at my mouth, or maybe I imagined it, then back up. For a moment, everything felt balanced on the edge of that look. Then I ruined it by standing. I should really go. My voice betrayed me. It didn't sound like someone who wanted to leave. It sounded like someone begging for her to stop him. She didn't stop me, not at first. But as I reached for my jacket, her hand brushed my arm again, firmer this time. You don't have to run away every time it feels complicated, she said. I froze, heartbeat pounding in my throat. Her hand stayed on my sleeve, not moving. The distance between us collapsed to almost nothing. Her face closer than it should have been, the warmth of her skin too much to ignore. A knock at the door shattered the moment. We both jumped back. She pressed her lips together, eyes wide, whispering almost urgently, "Don't say anything." The knock came again, louder this time. I swallowed, nerves tangling with something darker, something I couldn't name. My hand was still tingling from where she'd touched me. Cliffhanger ending. She stepped toward the door, but before opening it, she glanced back at me, her voice just above a whisper. When this is over, don't leave. The knock at the door faded into silence after a third unanswered rap. Whoever it was gave up. The quiet that followed felt even heavier, as if the house itself was holding its breath. She leaned against the door for a moment, eyes closed, shoulders tense. Then she turned back to me. "You shouldn't have been here for that," she said softly. I shifted, unsure if she meant the knock or the phone call. "I don't mind. That's the problem." Her laugh was short, bitter. "You don't know what it means to mind yet." I stepped closer, slower than I should have. "Then tell me." Her gaze caught mine, sharp and trembling at the same time. "He used to show up like that. Calls, knocks, messages. And I used to answer. Every time. Even when I knew I shouldn't." I swallowed hard. "You still want him?" The question came out too blunt, too raw. She flinched, but not with anger. "No," she whispered. "That's the part one can't explain. I don't want him. I just don't know what to do with the quiet he left behind." Her words hit deeper than I expected. I should have stayed silent, but instead I said, "Maybe you don't have to fill it with noise." She blinked at me, and I knew I'd gone too far, stepped into a space I didn't belong. I turned away, pretending to adjust my jacket, but she spoke again. Quieter now. "You see me too clearly." The room felt smaller. My chest felt heavier. I forced a laugh, shaky. "I'm not sure that's a bad thing. You're young." She shook her head, half smiling, half grimacing. "You'll wake up one day and realize this was a mistake." The words should have stopped me. Instead, I moved closer. Close enough to smell the faint trace of her perfume under the wine. Close enough that my voice dropped without meaning to. "Then let it be my mistake." Her breath caught. She didn't move away. The distance between us was nothing now, just inches and hesitation. Her hand twitched at her side, like she wanted to reach for me but didn't trust herself. "You don't understand what you're asking," she said. "Then explain it." Her eyes locked on mine, steady this time, stripped of any disguise. "I'm lonely, and I'm terrified of what that loneliness makes me want." The confession gutted me. I wanted to tell her I felt the same. Different reasons, same ache. But the words tangled in my throat. Instead, I lifted a hand, stopped just short of touching her cheek. Hovering there, trembling, waiting for a sign. She didn't lean in. She didn't pull away. She just stared at me, the kind of stare that says everything but still demands an answer. Her question, "Are you sure you want this?" was still echoing when the silence broke. Not from me. From her phone, buzzing again on the counter. This time she didn't ignore it. She picked it up, stared at the screen, and let out a sharp breath. "God," she muttered, more to herself than to me. "He won't stop." "Your ex?" I asked quietly. She hesitated before answering. "Not just him." That pause cut deep. "What do you mean?" She put the phone down carefully, almost as if it might explode. Her eyes darted to me, then away. "You know the women at the gym? The ones always talking, always whispering." I nodded slowly. I'd seen them. 4 of them, always together, always glancing over, laughing about things I wasn't meant to hear. "They've been watching me. Watching us." Her voice was low, urgent now. "One of them saw you coming here today. That's what the messages are about. That's why he knows." My chest tightened. "So they told him?" Her silence was the answer. I leaned against the table, trying to process. Shame flushed through me, not because of what we'd almost done, but because someone else already knew. The secret wasn't ours anymore. She stepped closer, voice trembling. "This wasn't supposed to get out. You don't understand how people talk in this neighborhood. How quickly it becomes something ugly." I swallowed, heat crawling up my neck. "Do you regret it?" Her eyes snapped to mine. "No. That's the worst part. I don't." The honesty hit harder than anything. My instinct was to pull back, to protect myself before it got messy. But instead, I blurted, "Let them talk. Then, let him know. I don't care. You should." Her voice cracked. "You're 22. You have your whole life ahead of you. You don't need my baggage, my mistakes, dragging you down." I wanted to argue, but the truth in her voice stopped me. She was protecting me, even as she let herself unravel. I stepped closer, close enough that her words brushed warm against my skin. Maybe I don't need safe. Maybe I just need real. Her breath caught. For a second, I thought she'd let herself fall into me, let everything collapse in one reckless moment. Then, the phone buzzed again, louder this time, vibrating across the counter. She closed her eyes, whispered almost like a confession, "He's coming here." My stomach dropped. The air shifted, danger, urgency, raw honesty colliding all at once. I looked at her, waiting for direction, for anything. The room felt smaller than ever, every sound amplified. The hum of the fridge, the distant traffic outside, the faint vibration of her phone still lying on the counter. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She held my wrist tight, eyes searching mine, like she was trying to read the answer to a question I hadn't even spoken. "Decide," she whispered. "Now." I wanted to run. I wanted to play it safe. But the truth was heavier than fear, heavier than reason. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. Her eyes widened, a flicker of disbelief mixed with something softer. Relief? Hope? Maybe both. "You really mean that?" she asked, voice breaking slightly. I nodded. "I do. I don't care about the whispers, the gossip, the past. I want this. You." Her hand slid from my wrist to my face, thumb brushing my cheek. The touch was light, tender, almost shy. I closed my eyes and let myself feel it, the warmth, the weight of what she'd been holding back. "I shouldn't," she began, but I interrupted gently, with my lips brushing her hand. "Neither should I. But here we are." Her laugh came softly, a mixture of relief and disbelief. "I didn't think you'd stay. I didn't think I'd feel this much," I admitted. "But I do, and I don't want to lose it before it even starts." For a moment we just stood there, the world outside irrelevant. Her perfume mingled with the faint smell of wine. The sound of her breathing matched mine. It was intimate, messy, perfectly human. Then she stepped closer, pressing her forehead to mine. "I was scared," she confessed. "Scared of wanting this, scared of making a mistake again." "You won't," I said softly, gripping her shoulders gently. "We'll figure it out. Together." Her eyes glistened, a mixture of tears and laughter. "Together," she echoed. The phone buzzed again, ignored this time. The noise didn't matter. Outside voices didn't matter. Only this, the tentative, trembling closeness, the shared heartbeat, the knowledge that we'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. I kissed her, softly at first, then more insistently, tasting the vulnerability, the fear, the longing. She returned it, hands threading through my hair, clinging as if she'd been holding onto this moment for years without knowing it. We broke apart just enough to breathe, foreheads still touching, smiles mingling with the relief that nothing else could erase. "I don't care what they say," I murmured. "I don't either," she replied. "Not anymore." We stayed like that, suspended in the quiet aftermath of chaos, knowing everything had changed and nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, the sun slipped through her kitchen window, painting everything in soft gold. The leak I had come to fix yesterday was long forgotten. The pipes were silent, but the space between us was not. She moved around the kitchen with an ease I hadn't seen before, humming softly, the casual grace of someone reclaiming her life. I watched her from the doorway, hands stuffed into my pockets, marveling at how ordinary moments could feel so electric. "You're staring," she said without turning. "I'm thinking," I said, stepping closer, "about how strange it is, how something that started with a leak could end like this." She laughed, shaking her head, glancing at me over her shoulder. "Strange isn't bad." I crossed the kitchen, brushing her shoulder lightly as I passed. Her perfume, warm and faint, lingered in my senses. I realized that all the tension, all the whispers, all the fear of getting it wrong, none of that mattered now. Only this mattered. I never thought I'd feel like this, she admitted, finally meeting my eyes. Not with someone so much younger. Not like this. I smiled, a mixture of relief and awe. Neither did I. But maybe that's the point. Nothing worth having is simple. We sat together at the small kitchen table, hands brushing, fingers slowly intertwining. There was no need for grand gestures. No need for dramatic declarations. Just honesty, closeness, and the quiet acknowledgement that we had chosen each other, against odds, fears, and expectations. Her eyes softened. I was scared, that I'd mess this up. You won't, I said. Not if we keep being honest. Not if we stay here like this. She smiled, leaning back, a hand on mine. I guess I just needed someone to stay. And you did. We didn't need more words. The morning light, the shared warmth, the gentle touch. It said everything. For the first time in years, she didn't feel lonely. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was crossing a line, just stepping into something real. Outside, the world hummed on, indifferent to the quiet miracle happening in her kitchen. But inside, everything had changed. Fear and hesitation had been replaced with connection and trust. I squeezed her hand, careful and reverent. We'll figure it out, I whispered. No rush, no expectations, just us. She leaned in, resting her head lightly against my shoulder. Just us, she repeated. And in that simple human moment, I realized that love, messy, complicated, improbable, was still possible. That sometimes the heart knows the right choice even when reason hesitates. That sometimes taking the leap is worth everything. We stayed like that for a while, the quiet intimacy of two people who had found each other, finally unafraid. Engagement prompt for viewers. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Would you like to see more slow-burn romances that explore forbidden sparks and emotional tension?